Hey y'all, we are continuing in this series. It is Facing Goliath today, and this is one of the most famous Bible stories, in my opinion. I'd have to do some research about that, but I feel like this story about David being this scrawny, young king and taking down a huge giant when the army who was supposed to be able to take him down could not is one that transcends religious circles. I think it's just a well-known story about David because it just resonates so much with people, right? Like, not you taking down the giant with five rocks. That's a whole different story. When I was reading this story, I thought about my mom who raised me, my adopted mom. This disclaimer: I am not telling anyone to do this. Disclaimer. But when I was growing up, and I remember coming home and being like, "Such and such picked on me, mom." Blah blah blah. She'd be like, "What did you do?" And I'd be like, "I ain't do nothing." My mom, why not? She would go through the story with me, right? And I remember her saying, if you get backed in the corner, pick you up a rock and sling it. Like, she would tell me to defend myself. And it just made me think about David. Like, I wonder if somebody had told him, if you feel backed in the corner, pick you up a stone and sling it, right? How did he learn how to throw these rocks? But anyway, that was just something that I thought about whenever I'm reading biblical stories. I try to make them resonate with me, where I'm from, what I think. Give me a second. I got to put this down and put on this lotion. My hands are dry. I do not like dry hands. Dry hands is one of my pet peeves. So I started the video and I looked down and realized I hadn't rubbed the lotion in. Anyway, I need to pin this to me because it's not working. Give me a second. I should have did this before the video started. Okay. So anyway, now we got the mic pinned, right? Now I can use my hands. And forgive me, y'all, I am drinking some throat coat tea. Help my voice. The seasons are changing. And so my voice is like, what we doing? We drinking throat coat? What we doing? Anyway, so we are picking up in First Samuel chapter 17. Now, to recap, David was anointed by Samuel, who was a prophet, to be the next king over Israel. Right now, we still have King Saul on the throne. Baby, he is in that thing strong. But we have King David, who has been chosen by Saul to help soothe his episodes he's having some sort of like manic depressive outburst episodes that can only be soothed by David's anointed instrumental musical prowess, right? He played a lyre, and he sang, I believe, and that was the only thing that could calm King Saul down. So we already recapped. David learned how to do this solo as a shepherd in the fields, right? David was overlooked by his father when the prophet Samuel went to the house to anoint him as king. Jesse brought all his sons except for David. Now, clearly I have beef about this, but hey, it is what it is. Finally, after Samuel went through everybody, he was like, okay, it's still one of your sons, somebody missing. And that's when Jesse was like, oh, yeah, we got the youngest, but he out there tending sheep. He ain't nobody. Like, really. David comes in, he's anointed, boom. But you can't announce this yet because King Saul is still on the throne and he is losing it, and he is searching for, trying to find out who is his replacement, because the Spirit of God and the anointing has left him, and he knows it. And so while he's having these episodes, one of the people that work at the castle suggests David, was like, hey, I know this young guy. He can play, he anointed, he looked good. Okay. They said David looked good, honey. And he should be the one you bring in, right? And so Saul listened, brought in David. David becomes his right-hand man. We pick up right there, 1 Samuel chapter 17. The Philistines drew up their troops for battle. They deployed them in Judah. They set up camp, right? Saul and the Israelites came together, camped at Oak Valley, and spread out their troops in battle readiness for the Philistines. The Philistines were on one hill and the Israelites was on another hill. They had the valley between them. A giant nearly 10 feet tall stepped out 10 feet. Let's just pause. Like, not 10 feet. Stepped from the Philistine line into the open. Goliath from Gath was his name. He had a bronze helmet. He was dressed in armor, 126 pounds of armor, right? He wore bronze shin guards, carried a bronze sword. His spear was like a fence rail. The spear tip alone weighed over 15 pounds. His shield bearer walked ahead of him. Goliath stood there and called out to the Israelite troops, "Why bother using your whole army? Am I not Philistine enough for you? And you're all committed to Saul, aren't you? So pick your best fighter and pit him against me. If he gets the upper hand and kills me, the Philistines will all become your slaves. But if I get the upper hand and kill him, you'll all become our slaves and serve us. I challenge the troops of Israel this day. Give me a man, let us fight it out together." When Saul and his troops heard the Philistines' challenge, they were terrified and lost all hope. Excuse me for clearing my throat. Enter David. He was the son of Jesse. Like I said, he was from Bethlehem. Sounds familiar, right? In Judah. Jesse, the father, had 8 sons, was himself too old to join Saul's army. Okay, Jesse didn't have to fight. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to war. Um, it names his sons Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah. David was the youngest. While his 3 oldest brothers went to war, David went back and forth from attending to Saul to tending his father's sheep. So yes, David had been promoted by Saul as his attendant, but he still had them sheep duties, baby. So David was running around, honey, probably in shape because he had to run back and forth. I'm sure he had to use a lot of energy, right? Each morning, wait a minute. Each morning and evening for 40 days, Goliath took his stand and made his speech. Let's stop. That's a long time for Goliath to be popping his gums, popping that good, popping off, talking smack. Not 40 days. Anyway, one day Jesse told David his son, "Take this sack of cracked wheat and these 10 loaves of bread and run them down to your brothers in the camp. And take these 10 wedges of cheese to the captain of the division." So Jesse pretty much sent some food, right? David was up at the crack of dawn. He had arranged for somebody to tend his flock. He took the food and was on his way just as Jesse had told him. He got to the camp just as the army was moving into battle formation, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines moved into position, facing each other, battle ready. David left his bundle of food in the care of a sentry, ran to the troops who were deployed, and greeted his brothers. While they were talking together, the Philistine champion Goliath of Gath stepped out from the front lines and gave his usual challenge. David heard him. The Israelites to a man, fell back the moment they saw the giant and they were frightened. The talk among the troops was, "Have you ever seen anything like this? This man openly and defiantly challenging Israel. The man who kills a giant will have it made. The king will give him a huge reward. Probably offer his daughter as a bride, give him his entire family a free ride." David, who was talking to the men standing around, asked, "What's in it for the man who kills the Philistine? Who does and get rid of this ugly blot? Who does he think he is anyway? This uncircumcised Philistine taunting the armies of God alive." They told him what everybody was saying, and his older brother, Eliab, heard David fraternizing with the men and lost his temper. "What are you doing here? Why aren't you minding your own business, tending the scrawny flock of sheep? I know what you're up to. You come down here to see the sights, hoping for a ringside seat at a bloody battle." "What is it with you?" David replied. "All I did was ask a question." Ignoring his brother, he turned to someone else and asked the same question. So pretty much David trying to find out what's going on. His brother like, "What you down here for anyway? You got them little sheep, right? Go tend to them." Um, the things the things David was saying were picked up and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. "Master," said David, "don't give up hope. I'm ready to go and fight this Philistine." Saul answered David, "You can't go and fight this Philistine. You're too young and inexperienced." Excuse me, got to clear my throat. "You're too young and inexperienced, right?" Um, da, 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 da. Okay, when I cleared my throat, I lost my space. Anyway, he was saying, "You're too young and you're too inexperienced." David said, I've been a shepherd tending sheep for my father. Now, this is key. Whenever a lion or bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I'd go after it, knock it down, and rescue the lamb. If it turned on me, I'd grab it by the throat, wring its neck, and kill it. Lion or bear, it made no difference. I killed it, and I'll do the same to this Philistine pig who is taunting the troops of God alive. God, who delivered me from the teeth of the lion and the claws of the bear, will deliver me from the Philistine. Saul said, Go and God help you. Then Saul outfitted David as a soldier in armor. He put his bronze helmet on his head and belted his sword on him over the armor. David tried to walk, but he could hardly budge. David told Saul, I can't even move with all this stuff on me. I'm not used to this. And he took it off. Then David took his shepherd's staff, selected 5 smooth stones from the brook, and put them in the pocket of his shepherd's pack, and with the sling in his hand, approached Goliath. As the Philistine paced back and forth, his shield bearer in front of him, he noticed David. He took one look down on him and sneered. A mere youngster, apple-cheeked and peach-fuzzed. AKA, child, you was a child. Who are you about to run up on? The Philistine ridiculed David. Am I a dog that you came after me with a stick? And he cursed him by his gods. Come on, said the Philistine. I'll make roadkill of you for the buzzards. I'll turn you into a tasty morsel for the field mice. David answered, you come at me with sword and spear and battle axe. I come at you in the name of God of the angel armies, the God of Israel's troops, whom you curse and mock. This very God is handing you over to me. I'm about to kill you, cut off your head, and serve your body up and the bodies of the Philistine buddies to the crows and the coyotes. The whole earth will know that there's an extraordinary God in Israel, and everyone gathered here will learn that God doesn't save by means of sword or spear. The battle belongs to God. He's handing you to us on a platter. That roused the Philistine, and he started toward David. David took off from the front line, running toward the Philistine. David reached into his pocket for a stone, slung it, and hit the Philistine hard in the forehead, embedding the stone deeply. The Philistine crashed face down in the dirt. That's how David beat the Philistine, with a sling and a stone. He hit him and killed him. No sword for David. Then David ran up to the Philistine, stood over him, pulled up the giant sword from its sheath, and finished the job by cutting off his head. When the Philistines saw that their great champion was dead, they scattered, running for their lives. The men of Israel and Judah were up on their feet, shouting. They chased the Philistines all the way out to the outskirts of Gath and to the gates of Ekron. Wounded Philistines were strewn along the Sharim road all of the way to Gath and Ekron. After chasing the Philistines, the Israelites came back and looted their camp. David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem, but the giant's weapons he placed in his own tent. Okay. Woo! Ooh! I hit that giant with a bottle. I hit that. I remember that song. I hit him with a bottle. Oh, it's not a Christian song. Anyway, where do we start? I have some notes. So I already addressed how David's brothers were kind of treating him. And so when David showed up, like his father had told him to take the food to his brothers, his brother, the oldest one, was like, what you here for anyway? You just want to see something. Pretty much the way he's always treated David is what came out in that moment. And so I was wondering and looking into why David may not have been invited to battle. I think it was because first, he was too young. He was somewhere between 15 and 17. I'm going to say he was about 17. In ancient Israel, you had to be 20 years old to be eligible for the military service. He was the youngest of 8, so he stayed home. He had those responsibilities too. Like I mentioned, he still had to tend to the sheep. And he was also helping King Saul. He was his armor bearer, and so he was also a musician there playing for Saul, but he was back and forth, so he had a lot of duties calling onto him at one time. He was still serving, but he wasn't a soldier. Like I said, he was running errands and feeding his brother at war, so his own father had sent him down to take food to his brothers. And he was young, no military training. His family pretty much underestimated his abilities. And to his brothers, he was still just a shepherd boy. Now, there's a lot in that. Often, familiarity just breeds contempt. It's just because people know you, they've been around you, especially family, friends, siblings. A lot of times, they do not see um, where you're headed and they can't fully acknowledge your growth. It just is one of those things. And listen, I have spent a long time thinking about that, grappling with it, being treated certain ways, and it just is what it is. Often, the people who grow up with you, they just cannot recognize certain things about you. Even when it's extremely obvious, they will go out of their way sometimes to not see it because it makes them feel insecure or for whatever other reasons they may be harboring. Sometimes they think it just shouldn't be you, right? Sometimes they just think what they think about you and they don't like it. Same thing with Joseph, his story, him, how his father favored him. He had the coats of many colors. His siblings was just like, I know it's not Joseph. Like it's just in people a lot of times. And often it gets aimed at the youngest for a lot of reasons. That's a whole different story that I will not go into. Anyway, um, David heard those taunts, like I just read. He was like, I can kill this giant now. Listen, Goliath was 10 feet, right? People are 6 and 7 feet, and we're like, whoo, right? Imagine 10 feet. And imagine David still being like, it don't matter if he know 10 feet, I'm gonna run up. He had chosen 5 stones, but it took one. Interesting to me that he had picked up five, because I guess David was like, I don't know if I'm gonna have to keep slinging or what. But he only used one, and that one was that one hitter, quitter, big baby, because he hit him in his forehead. Boom, the giant was out. Anyway, and then pretty gruesomely, David cut off his head. I don't condone violence. Just, I mean, hey, cut off his head because that's what he told him he was gonna do. Um, Listen, those five, it's a lot of ways we could go with this, but I want to go to the psalm because, of course, this series is about how David, while he was tending the sheep, while he was a shepherd, while he was alone, wrote a lot of music and psalms, which I'm looking at as journaling in a way, because him, it was music and it was words, but for us, it could be a journal, it could be us writing down our thoughts. But Psalm 144, a song to the Lord who preserves and prospers his people, a psalm of David. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. My loving kindness and my fortress, my high tower and my deliverer, my shield and the one whom I take refuge, who subdues my people under me. So that's from Psalm 144. That's just a small snippet, but the language about the Lord being a rock. And so you have to wonder, when he ran up with that one rock, was he said, I'm coming in the name of God, the way he wraps this imagery into his writing, into this poetry, into the Psalms. He says God trained his hand for war. So when David was talking, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was talking smack back and was like, yo, I didn't kill lions. They ran up, I choked out bears. So essentially, he's saying, God trained me in those times, right? Those scary times when I was all by myself, God used that to train me for war and my fingers for battle. He said hands and fingers, which I thought was interesting. I didn't do a did not do a deep study into that, but he could have just said my hands. He said hands and fingers, right? War and battle, right? I may have to do a deep dive into that. But here he talks about God as his deliverer, the one whom he can take refuge. Again, just such beautiful imagery when you put it all together and you think about David by himself, right? David seeing a bear try to run off with a sheep. You didn't chase down the bear. Like, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. That bear might have had a little sheep meal, honey. Cause wait a minute, you want me to go chase the bear down? That is some bold and very audacious, scary stuff. But again, that is what King David, at the time, young shepherd David, did. That is how he learned to be fearless. He literally learned in the wilderness under these crazy conditions, right? He said when a lion or a bear came, Not a lion, baby. Ooh, honey, the way that lion might would have had a tasty sheep snack from the flock. I don't know. Like, do I have a gun? What you talking about, David? Like, I choked him out. Like, you choked him with your hands, David. Oh my goodness. Anyway, David was bold. David was never scared. I ain't never scared. That was David, the original. I ain't never scared. Okay, David was bold. David showed up. Listen, let me ask you some journaling prompts though. What Goliath are you facing right now? And when we think of Goliath, not necessarily a person. It could be something you're afraid to do that you've been wanting to do, right? And if you gave it voice, it would be saying something like, "You can't do that. You're not qualified for that." It may sound like the voice of the people from the past. Like I mentioned, often people that have grown up with us, that know us, that are extremely familiar with us, may speak some of these words over us. It's just because they're familiar, right? Next question. Who told you that you weren't capable? Kind of like the oldest brother and Saul did to David. They both were kind of like, you can't kill no giant, right? And when they told you that, how did that shape or impact your confidence? Listen, we have all been told we couldn't do something. We've all accidentally told somebody else they couldn't, right? Maybe someone came to you and the first instinct was like, you can't do that. Not because you meant to think like that, but just what they said to you was just so far fetched, so out of the box. Or you said something out of the box, right? It was extreme and the people weren't able to process and comprehend it. When has that happened to you and how did it shape your confidence? And the next one, what past victories has God given you? Your lion and bear moments. Now, listen, for me, it's not physically lions and bears, but I've had quite a few of those moments. I think I've shared on the channel about my basic training experience where I could not seem to overcome. It was really mind over matter, but I had to overcome in basic being left behind because I could not get the run right. Oop, my nails look cute. They fresh. Anyway, I couldn't get the run right. And y'all, I got held back twice. It was embarrassing. Take a sip of my tea. It was hard, right? Um, I had to overcome. Really, the giant was me. It was in my mind, right? Sip this tea. It was in my mind. It was what I thought I couldn't do, right? Not per se anyone planning it there. I didn't grow up as the most athletic. I wasn't chosen for athletic stuff. I wasn't athletic. But because of that, maybe in my mind, I was struggling. So, what past victories has God given you? List them as reminders. Um, the next question, are you trying to fight your battle using someone else's armor, expectations, or timeline? Listen, I talk a lot about this too. I haven't said armor, but expectations can be kind of an armor. Other people's expectations of you, of what you should and shouldn't be doing, can feel heavy, can feel burdensome, can kind of cause you to like, this don't fit me, but I don't quite know why, right? Think about that. Um, Other people's timeline for you. Well, when you gone, fill in the blank, right? That can start to feel cumbersome, clunky, heavy. That's not your timeline and that's not your life, right? What does it look like to fight as you and not who others think you should be? This one is deep. This one is so deep. Listen, I want you to journal this. I want you to sit with this. What does it look like to fight as you? So that means God is giving you tools to fight with. So back to the story where, King Saul was like, well, look, take this armor. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to send you out there uncovered. So his act was really one of care. It was one of concern. It was kind of like, I'm not going to just let him run about here like that, child. He ain't got no armor. And so still it didn't fit David though. Even though King Saul was being caring and concerned, David had to fight with the tools God trained him with. And often we'll pick up tools other people tell us to use. Hey, do this, you should use this, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't fit. It's cumbersome. It's clunky. It's not how you were trained, actually. So it's not working. So write that down. Write your version of David's word. you come to me with blank, but I come in the name of the Lord. So he was like, he was talking smack to Goliath and was like, you come to me with that sword and that axe and all that big stuff. But you know what? I came in the name of the Lord. But what would your version of this be? Right. So you came to me with doubt, right? But I come to you in the name of the Lord. The next question: what small stones has God already placed in your hand? Like a skill, creativity, consistency. You know, I've struggled with this. It's so easy to overlook what has been given to us because maybe it don't seem big or maybe it does not seem, powerful. But God has trained us in it. And as we hone that, as we get better with that, it becomes powerful. We just may not realize it. Just like David was like, I fought lions, bears, you know what I'm saying? I know how to use these slings. When he was learning that, when he was fighting for his life, when he had to use those slings, he may not have seen how one day he would be out on the field killing a 10-foot giant, right? Right? That 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot punch. Ah! Anyway, so yeah, write a victory prayer. Um, Write a victory prayer. If you've never journaled a victory prayer, this would be a good time to do it. I am going to link these questions. Sometimes I forget to do it, but I will link them and pin them in the comments or under the description. And definitely check out the story. It is 1 Samuel chapter 17. Check out my journal. If you don't have a place where you're journaling, where you're grappling with things, it is on Amazon. It is a great way for you to work through some questions and some self discovery. Definitely take my free confidence quiz for the ladies watching this. It's really interesting quiz. It's totally free. Check that out, and I will see you on the next video.